Finding My Name by Michael Kinney. Chapter 5. The House We Built. When I was almost 12 years old, my parents decided to build a house. At least that's how I understood it at the time. To a kid, having a house built sounds like something successful people do. It sounds like you finally made it. It sounds permanent. While the house was being built, we moved into Jeff's cousin's single-wide trailer. There were 6 people living there between the adults and kids. 4 cats, 3 dogs, and a lizard. The trailer always felt crowded. There was always noise, always movement, always somebody awake when you wanted to sleep or talking when you wanted quiet. By that age, I was going through puberty and discovering something most boys take for granted: privacy. Or more accurately, the complete lack of. There was nowhere to be alone, nowhere to think, nowhere to escape. At the time, I thought it was torture. Looking back now, it was one of the better years of my childhood. Not because the living conditions were good, because Dad barely drank. For the first time in years, the tension in my chest started to loosen. The yelling stopped, the fear stopped, the constant feeling that something bad might happen at any moment disappeared. It took me a long time to understand why. People could see him. There were witnesses. I was rediscovering that different places held different versions of the same person. The version of Dad that lived around other adults wasn't the version that lived alone with us. For almost a year, life felt normal. Then the house was finished. The dream we had all been waiting for finally arrived. Only it didn't take long for the cracks to show. Dad quit his job. Mom continued doing what she had done for as long as I could remember. She worked. She paid the bills. She carried the weight of keeping everything together. Dad was supposed to watch Andrew and me during the day. Most days that responsibility seemed to annoy him. Sometimes he'd make us go to Mammy's. Other times, especially during winter, he'd shove bread bags over my socks and told me to go outside. I'd spend hours wandering around the town, my feet sweating inside plastic bags trying to stay warm while he stayed inside drinking. At some point, anger started replacing fear. Not all at once, just little pieces at a time. Every broken promise, every excuse, every day Mom had to come home exhausted while Dad sat around acting like the victim. Every time I watched him demand respect he hadn't earned. The resentment piled up until there wasn't much room left for anything else. One afternoon, I came home from school and could hear his music before I even opened the front door. The volume was turned up so loud the walls practically vibrated. Mom wasn't home yet. I walked through the house, headed toward my room, dropped my backpack, and started toward the kitchen. Dad was standing there in his bedroom doorway. His room sat right beside mine. He was waiting. "Where the fuck you think you're going?" Normally I would have kept my head down. Normally I would have swallowed whatever I wanted to say. But I was tired. Tired of the drinking, tired of the yelling, and tired of him. I looked at him and answered, "Wherever the fuck I never finished the sentence. Before I knew what was happening, his hand grabbed the back of my head. The next thing I remember was drywall. My head went straight through it. Even now, years later, I can still remember the sound, the feeling. But most of all, I remember the look on his face. Shock. For just a second, he looked as surprised as I was. Like even he hadn't expected things to go that far. I didn't stop to think. I swung as hard as I could. My fist connected with his jaw. Nothing happened. He barely moved. The difference between a grown man and a 12-year-old boy became painfully obvious in that moment. So I did the smartest thing I could think of. I ran through the living room, out the front door, across the yard into our minivan. I climbed into the back and ducked below the windows. For a moment I thought I'd made it. Then I heard him outside, shouting, getting closer, and then bam! Glass explodes above me. chunk of cinder block crashed through the window and landed on the seat beside where I'd been hiding. If I'd been sitting upright, it would have hit me. The fear I'd spent years carrying suddenly felt justified all over again. I crawled toward the front of the van, slipped out the driver's side door, and ran. I didn't stop until I reached Mammy's house. From there I called Mom. I told her everything, the hole in the wall, the punch, the van window, the cinder block. Everyone said the same thing. This would change him. He'd finally realized he'd gone too far. He'd be better now. I'd heard that before, and deep down, I already knew better.